The theater's velvet curtain trembled, heavy with the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories. As the spotlight burned down on Caleb's face, I sat in the third row, my heart a clenched fist, watching my boyfriend kiss the lead actress with a passion that felt too real, too raw. The audience erupted in laughter, their jeers slicing through me like shards of glass. And I realized they weren't laughing at the play, they were laughing at me. I'd always known Caleb was a star. His charisma could light up a room, his smile a magnet that drew everyone in, including me. We met 2 years ago at a community theater workshop in Portland, Oregon, where he was the dazzling lead and I was the shy tech guy, fumbling with light cues and tripping over cables. He'd teased me about my clumsy hands, then stayed late to help me pack up, his laughter warm and unguarded. That night, under the flicker of a faulty stage light, he kissed me for the first time, and I thought I'd found my forever. Now, sitting in the darkened theater, I wasn't so sure. The play was Star-Crossed Shadows, a modern retelling of a tragic romance. And Caleb was Julian, the tortured hero. The actress, Lila Monroe, played his lover, Isabella. Their chemistry was electric, undeniable, and the script called for a kiss in the final act, a kiss that was supposed to be staged, choreographed, fake. But as Caleb's lips met Lila's, his hands cupping her face with a tenderness I thought was reserved for me, something inside me fractured. The audience's laughter grew louder, and I caught whispers. Poor guy in the third row, didn't he know? My face burned. Did they see the truth in that kiss? Or was I imagining it? Caleb had promised me it was just acting. It's a job, Ethan, he'd said last week, sprawled across our tiny apartment's couch, his head in my lap. Lila's great, but she's not you. I'd believed him because I wanted to, because his hazel eyes and easy grin made it impossible not to. But now, watching him lose himself in that kiss, I wondered if I'd been naive. The theater was packed, local critics, theater buffs, Caleb's drama professor from Reed College, but all I could feel was the weight of their eyes on me, the boyfriend who didn't belong in this glittering world. After the curtain fell, I slipped out of my seat, avoiding the crowd's murmurs. Backstage was chaos, actors hugging, crew members dismantling props, the air thick with adrenaline and cheap perfume. I found Caleb near the dressing rooms, his face still flushed from the performance. Ethan, he called, his smile wide, oblivious. What did you think? I forced a smile, my throat tight. You were incredible. The word felt like a betrayal. He pulled me into a hug, his costume scratchy against my skin, but I couldn't shake the image of his lips on hers. The kiss, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It looked real. His laugh was light, dismissive. That's the point, babe. I'm good at what I do. He squeezed my shoulder and turned to greet a group of fans, leaving me standing there, a ghost in his spotlight. That night, back at our apartment, I couldn't sleep. Caleb was out celebrating with the cast, and I lay on our creaky mattress, staring at the ceiling. The laughter from the theater echoed in my head, each chuckle a reminder of my insecurity. I'd always felt like I was borrowing Caleb, like I was too ordinary for someone who shone so brightly. He was the actor, the dreamer. I was the guy who fixed lights and paid bills. What if he was slipping away, and I was too afraid to admit it? The next morning, Caleb was all apologies, his voice soft as he made coffee. I'm sorry I dished you last night, he said, sliding a mug toward me. The cast wanted to hit the bar, and I got caught up. You okay? I nodded, but the question lingered. Was I okay? I wanted to ask about the kiss. About Lila. About us. Instead, I said, "You were amazing. Everyone loved you." He grinned, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt. Maybe. Or something I couldn't name. Over the next week, rehearsals for the play's second weekend consumed him. He came home late, humming show tunes, his phone buzzing with texts from Lila and the cast. I tried to be supportive, but every time he mentioned her name, my chest tightened. Lila was everything I wasn't: confident, glamorous, born for the stage. I started noticing things: how Caleb's eyes lit up when he talked about her, how he'd linger on her Instagram posts, her perfect smile beaming back at me from his phone. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. "Caleb," I said, my voice shaking as he scrolled through his phone on the couch. "Is there something going on with you and Lila?" He looked up, startled, then laughed. "Ethan, come on. It's just work." But his laugh was too quick, too sharp, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. The silence in our apartment was louder than the theater's laughter. Caleb set his phone down, his expression softening, but I could see the walls going up. "Ethan, you're overthinking this," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, my heart pounding. "Am I?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Because it didn't look like acting. It looked like you meant it. The words spilled out, raw and jagged, and I hated how vulnerable they made me feel. Caleb's face fell, and for a moment, I thought he'd confess anything to explain the ache in my chest. Instead, he stood, running a hand through his hair. "Ethan, I'm an actor. I make things look real. That's my job." His tone was patient, but there was an edge to it, like he was tired of explaining. "Lila and I have chemistry because we've been rehearsing for months. It's not personal." "Then why does it feel personal?" I shot back. "Why do I feel like I'm losing you?" He stared at me, his hazel eyes searching mine, and for a second, I saw the Caleb I fell in love with, the one who'd stay up late talking about dreams and fears, who'd hold me when the world felt too big. But then he sighed, and the moment was gone. "You're not losing me," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I need you to trust me." Trust. The word hung between us, fragile and heavy. I wanted to believe him, but doubt had taken root, and it was growing faster than I could control. The next day, I did something I wasn't proud of. I checked his phone while he was in the shower. My hands shook as I scrolled through his texts with Lila. Most were about the play rehearsal times, blocking notes, but one message stopped me cold. "You were electric tonight. Can't wait to do it again." It was from Lila, sent after last night's performance, with a heart emoji. Caleb's reply was simple: "You too. See you tomorrow." No emoji, no flirtation, but it still felt like a betrayal. I put the phone down before he came out, my stomach churning. I didn't tell him what I'd done, but the guilt gnawed at me. Was I the problem, turning nothing into something? Or was I right to be scared? The second weekend of the play arrived, and I went back to the theater, determined to prove I could handle it. The audience was bigger this time, the energy electric. Caleb was even better than before, his performance raw and captivating. But every time he and Lila shared the stage, I felt like an outsider, watching a love story I wasn't part of. The kiss came again, and this time, the audience didn't laugh, they gasped, caught in the moment's intensity. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Caleb's hands lingered on Lila's waist, and I swore I saw her lean into him, her smile too genuine, After the show, I waited outside, the Portland night air cool against my skin. Caleb emerged, surrounded by castmates. Lila at his side. She was laughing, her hand brushing his arm, and he didn't pull away. When he saw me, he broke free, jogging over with a grin. "You came," he said, pulling me into a hug. I wanted to melt into him, but Lila's presence lingered like a shadow. "Great show," I said, my voice flat. Lila joined us, her smile dazzling. "Ethan, right," she said, her tone warm but distant. "Caleb talks about you all the time." I nodded, unsure if she was being kind or marking her territory. That night, Caleb sensed my mood. "You're still upset about the kiss, aren't you?" he asked, sitting across from me at our tiny kitchen table. "It's not just the kiss," I admitted. "It's her. It's how you light up around her. It's how I feel like I'm not enough." Caleb's face softened, and he reached for my hand. "Ethan, you're more than enough. I love you." His words were a lifeline, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away. The next week was a blur of rehearsals and late nights. Caleb was busier than ever, and I buried myself in work, tweaking lighting designs for a local high school's production. But the distance between us grew, and I started noticing things I hadn't before. Caleb's phone was always face down now, his stories about rehearsals vague. One night, I overheard him on the phone, his voice low and intimate. "Yeah, I know," he said. "It's complicated." I didn't hear the other side, but I didn't need to. My heart sank. I confronted him that night, my voice trembling. "Caleb, are you in love with her?" He froze, his eyes wide. "No," he said, too quickly. "Ethan, I swear, it's not like that." But the hesitation in his voice told me everything I needed to know. Caleb's denial hung in the air, fragile as a cracked glass. I wanted to believe him, to cling to the love we'd built. But the truth was clawing its way out, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. "Then why does it feel like you're pulling away?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why do I feel like I'm fighting for you, and you're not even trying?" He paced our small living room, his hands raking through his hair. "Ethan, I'm not pulling away. I'm just caught up in the show. It's intense. You know, the role, the pressure, it's a lot." His eyes avoided mine, and I knew he was holding something back. "Tell me the truth," I said, stepping closer. "If there's something going on with Lila, I deserve to know." He stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping. "There's nothing going on," he said, but his voice was quieter now, less certain. "She's a friend. A good friend. We get each other. That's all." "A friend," I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "You don't text, just friends with heart emojis at 2 a.m. You don't look at just friends the way you looked at her on stage." Caleb's face hardened. "You went through my phone." His tone was sharp, accusatory, and I felt a pang of guilt. But I stood my ground. "I had to," I said, "because you're not telling me anything. I'm not an idiot. Caleb, I see how you are with her." He threw his hands up, exasperated. "What do you want me to say? That I'm cheating? That I'm in love with her? I'm not, Ethan. But yeah, maybe I like the attention. Maybe it feels good to be wanted by someone who gets this world, who gets what it's like to pour your soul into a performance." His words hit like a punch, and I stepped back, stunned. So I don't get you, I asked, my voice barely audible. 2 years. Caleb. 2 years of supporting you, loving you. And now I'm not enough because I'm not some glamorous actress. That's not what I meant, he said, his voice softening. But the damage was done. We stood there. The space between us a chasm I didn't know how to cross. He reached for me, but I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. I need space, I said, grabbing my jacket and heading for the door. Figure out what you want, Caleb, because I can't keep doing this. The Portland streets were cold. The city lights blurred through my tears. I walked aimlessly, the theater's laughter echoing in my mind. I ended up at a 24-hour diner, the kind with sticky tables and neon signs, and ordered a coffee I didn't drink. My phone buzzed with texts from Caleb. I am sorry. Can we talk? I love you, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I felt like I was losing him. And worse, I was losing myself in the process. The next day, I called in sick to work and stayed in bed, replaying every moment of our fight. Caleb was gone when I woke up, probably at rehearsal. I tried to distract myself with TV, but every show seemed to mock me with perfect, happy couples. Around noon, my best friend, Mia, showed up with a bag of donuts and her usual blunt honesty. You look like crap, she said, tossing the bag on the counter. What happened? I told her everything: the kiss, the texts, the fight. She listened, her face a mix of sympathy and rage. He's an idiot if he's messing this up, she said. But you need to decide what you're worth, Ethan. You can't keep letting him make you feel small. Her words stuck with me, but they didn't make the pain go away. I spent the next few days avoiding Caleb, crashing on Mia's couch. He called, texted, even showed up at her apartment. But I wasn't ready to face him. I needed to figure out who I was without him, if that was even possible. When the third weekend of the play rolled around, Mia convinced me to go. Not for him, she said, but for you. Show him you're not invisible. I didn't want to, but I went, sitting in the back row this time, hidden in the shadows. The performance was flawless. Caleb and Lila's chemistry searing. The kiss came, and I braced myself, but it still hurt. A fresh wound. The audience cheered, oblivious to my breaking heart. After the show, I lingered outside, unsure why I was there. Caleb found me, his face pale, his eyes searching. Ethan, he said, his voice raw. I'm so sorry. I messed up. Can we talk? Please. I wanted to walk away, but something in his voice stopped me. One chance, I said. But you need to be honest. No more lies. He nodded, and we walked to a nearby park. The city quiet around us. Under a flickering street lamp, he told me the truth. He wasn't in love with Lila, but he'd let her attention fill a void he hadn't realized was there. I've been so focused on the play, on being someone else. I forgot how to be me with you, he said. I don't want to lose you, Ethan. I love you. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and ours was cracked. I love you too, I said, my voice trembling. But I don't know if that's enough anymore. The park was quiet, the street lamp casting long shadows across the grass. Caleb's confession hung between us, raw and unguarded, but it didn't erase the ache in my chest. I want to fix this, he said, his voice breaking. Tell me how. I looked at him, his face illuminated by the dim light. and saw the boy I'd fallen for, the one who'd made me feel seen, who'd laughed at my terrible puns and held me through my insecurities. But I also saw the distance that had grown between us, the way his world had expanded while mine had shrunk to fit his. "I don't know if you can," I said, my voice steady despite the tears. "I've been fighting for us, Caleb, but it feels like I'm fighting alone." He flinched, his hands shoving into his pockets. "I know I screwed up," he said. "I got caught up in the play, in the attention. But it's you I want, Ethan. It's always been you." His words were everything I'd wanted to hear, but they felt hollow, like lines from one of his scripts. I shook my head. "I need time," I said. "I need to figure out who I am without you pulling me into your orbit." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'll wait," he said. "However long it takes." I walked away, my heart heavy but resolute. The next few weeks were a blur of self-reflection. I moved back into our apartment, but slept in the living room, the space between us a physical reminder of our emotional distance. Caleb gave me space, but I could feel his presence, his quiet apologies, in the way he made coffee for me each morning, the way he left notes saying, "I'm here when you're ready." I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects at the theater. Lighting design had always been my escape, a way to create beauty in the chaos. My boss, Mr. Callahan, noticed my focus and offered me a lead role on a new production. A small but meaningful step up. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of pride in myself, a reminder that I was more than Caleb's shadow. Mia was my rock, dragging me to coffee shops and karaoke nights, forcing me to laugh when all I wanted to do was cry. "You're stronger than you think," she told me one night, her voice firm. "You don't need Caleb to define you." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me toward a version of myself I'd forgotten existed. Meanwhile, Caleb's play ended its run, but his connection with Lila didn't. I saw them together at a cast party I reluctantly attended. Their laughter too easy, their glances too familiar. I didn't confront him. I was too tired for another fight, but I started to accept that maybe we were drifting toward an inevitable end. One night, I found a letter tucked under my pillow, written in Caleb's messy scrawl. "Ethan, I know I hurt you. I know I let the spotlight blind me. But I'm trying to be better. For you. For us. I'm starting therapy next week to figure out why I let myself get lost. Please don't give up on me." I read it over and over, torn between hope and fear. Therapy was a start. But was it enough? I decided to meet him halfway. We started talking again. Small conversations about our days, our dreams, our fears. It wasn't the same as before, but it was something. One evening, he suggested we go to an open mic night at a local bar. Just the two of us. No actors. No drama. He said with a shy smile. Just us. The bar was crowded, the air thick with cigarette smoke and laughter. Caleb didn't perform, but he cheered loudly when I got up and read a poem I'd written about love and loss. It was raw, messy, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Afterward, Caleb pulled me close, his lips brushing my ear. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered, and for the first time in weeks, I believed him. But the shadow of Lila lingered. I saw her name pop up on his phone again, and though he swore it was just friendly, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still a part of his world in a way I wasn't. I started to wonder if love was enough when trust was so hard to rebuild. One afternoon, Mia dragged me to a local art gallery, a distraction from my spiraling thoughts. There, I met Jasper, a painter with kind eyes and a quiet confidence. He complimented my lighting work on a recent show, and we talked for hours. The conversation easy and unforced. For the first time, I felt seen, not as Caleb's boyfriend, but as Ethan. When he asked for my number, I hesitated, then gave it to him. It wasn't a betrayal, but it felt like a step toward something new. That night, I told Caleb about Jasper. His face fell, but he nodded. "I want you to be happy," he said, his voice thick. "Even if it's not with me." Caleb's words echoed in my mind as I lay awake that night. "I want you to be happy." They were selfless, but they cut deeper than any argument. Was he letting me go? Or was he fighting for me in his own broken way? I stared at the ceiling, the weight of our 2 years together pressing against the possibility of something new with Jasper. My heart was a battlefield, torn between loyalty and the need to protect myself. The next morning, Caleb was quiet, his eyes red-rimmed as he poured coffee. "Did you mean it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "About me being happy, even if it's not with you." He set the pot down, his hands trembling. "I meant it," he said, meeting my gaze. "But I'm not giving up. Ethan, I know I messed up, but I'm trying. I started therapy. Like I said, I'm figuring out why I let Lila get in my head, why I let the stage make me someone I'm not." I nodded, unsure what to say. Therapy was a step, but trust wasn't rebuilt in a week. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I need to figure out what I want too." He looked like he wanted to say more, but he just nodded and left for rehearsal. I spent the day at the theater, tweaking lights for the new production. Work was my refuge, a place where I could control the narrative, where shadows and light bent to my will. Mr. Callahan praised my designs, saying they had soul. It was a small victory, but it reminded me I was more than Caleb's sidekick. Jasper texted me that afternoon, asking if I wanted to grab coffee. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. He was kind, grounded, a stark contrast to Caleb's chaotic energy. I agreed to meet him, telling myself it was just coffee, not a commitment. We met at a cozy cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Jasper was easy to talk to, his passion for painting infectious. He asked about my work, my dreams, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was enough. "You're different," he said, stirring his latte. "Most people in the arts are so consumed by their own egos. But you see the bigger picture." I blushed and used to the praise. "I just try to make things beautiful," I said. He smiled, and I felt a spark, not the wildfire of Caleb's charm, but a steady warmth. When we parted, he hugged me, and I didn't pull away. That night, I came home to find Caleb waiting, his face a mix of hope and fear. "How was your day?" he asked, his voice careful. "Good," I said, setting my bag down. "I met someone for coffee. Jasper, the painter." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Is he someone you could see yourself with?" The question hung heavy, and I didn't know how to answer. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but he makes me feel like I matter." Caleb's eyes glistened, and he stepped closer. "You've always mattered to me, Ethan. I know I haven't shown it lately, but you do." He reached for my hand, and this time, I let him take it. His touch was familiar, grounding, but it also reminded me of everything we'd lost. Over the next week, Caleb doubled down on his efforts. He cooked dinner, left sweet notes, even showed up at the theater to help with my lighting setup. He was trying, and I could see it. But every time I let myself hope, I saw Lila smile, heard the audience's laughter. Jasper, meanwhile, was a quiet presence, texting me funny memes and inviting me to art events. He didn't push, but his steadiness was tempting. One evening, Caleb suggested we go to the coast. Just the two of us. A reset, he called it. We drove to Cannon Beach, the ocean stretching out like a promise. We walked along the shore, the wind biting our faces. And for a moment, it felt like old times. He told me about therapy, how he was unpacking his need for validation, how he'd let the stage become his identity. I was scared, he admitted, staring at the waves. Scared I wasn't good enough. So I chased the applause. But it's not worth losing you. I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. What about Lila? I asked. Do you still talk to her? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, but it's different now. I set boundaries. She's just a friend. Ethan. I swear. I nodded, but the word friend still stung. We spent the night in a small inn, sharing a bed but not touching. The space between us a silent question. The ocean's rhythm followed us back to Portland, a reminder of the fragile peace we'd found. Caleb was trying, really trying, and I could see the effort in his eyes, in the way he listened when I talked, in the way he showed up. But trust is a slow rebuild, and every time his phone buzzed, I braced for the worst. Lila's shadow loomed, even if he swore she was just a friend. Jasper, meanwhile, was a growing presence in my life. We met for coffee again, then a gallery opening. His quiet confidence a balm to my bruised heart. He didn't know the full story of Caleb and me, but he sensed the weight I carried. You deserve someone who sees you, he said one night, his voice soft but firm. Not just when it's convenient. His words hit hard, echoing Mia's advice. And I started to wonder if I'd been holding on to Caleb out of habit, not love. Back at the apartment, Caleb was making changes. He'd cut back on late-night cast hangouts, focusing on us instead. One evening, he surprised me with a homemade dinner-burnt lasagna, but the effort made me laugh. We talked about the future, about moving to a bigger city, maybe Seattle, where I could take on bigger lighting projects and he could audition for professional theaters. It felt like a dream we could share, but doubt still gnawed at me. Then came the night that changed everything. I was at the theater, finalizing lights for the new production, when Caleb showed up, his face pale. Ethan, we need to talk, he said, his voice urgent. My stomach dropped, expecting another confession about Lila. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me an email from a theater in Chicago, offering him a role in a major production. It's a big deal, he said, his eyes bright with excitement but tinged with fear. But it's a 6-month contract. I'd have to move. I stared at him, the words sinking in. What about us? I asked, my voice barely audible. I want you to come with me, he said, grabbing my hands. We could start fresh. Ethan. No Lila. No drama. Just us. The offer was everything I'd wanted a chance to rebuild, to be his priority. But it also terrified me. Chicago was a new world, far from Mia, from my job, from the life I'd started to reclaim. And Jasper's face flashed in my mind, his steady presence a contrast to Caleb's whirlwind. I need time to think, I said, pulling my hands away. Caleb nodded, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. He left me there, the theater quiet around me, the weight of his offer pressing down. The next day, I met Jasper at a park, needing clarity. I told him about Caleb's offer, about the past few months, about the kiss that had broken me. He listened, his face calm but thoughtful. "What do you want, Ethan?" he asked. "Not Caleb. Not Muhat do you want for you?" The question stopped me cold. I'd spent so long defining myself through Caleb, through his dreams, that I'd forgotten my own. "I want to be enough," I said finally. "I want to feel like I'm enough." Jasper smiled, his hand brushing mine. "You already are." That night, I sat Caleb down. "I love you," I said, my voice steady. "But I can't go to Chicago. Not right now. I need to figure out who I am without you." His face crumpled, but he nodded. "I understand," he said, his voice thick. "But I'm not giving up on us. I'll do the long-distance thing, whatever it takes." I shook my head. "I need a clean break, Caleb. For both of us." He cried then, and so did I. We held each other, mourning what we'd lost, but knowing it was the right choice. The next day, he started packing for Chicago, and I moved out, crashing with Mia while I looked for a new place. Jasper and I kept in touch, our friendship growing into something more. But I wasn't ready for a new relationship. I focused on my work, taking on bigger projects, finding my voice in the theater world. Caleb and I texted occasionally, his messages full of updates about Chicago. But the distance gave me clarity. I'd loved him, but I'd lost myself in the process. Months later, I got a package in the Mila playbill from Caleb's Chicago show, signed by the cast. Tucked inside was a note. "You're still my brightest light, Ethan. Thank you for teaching me what love means." The playbill sat on my new coffee table, a small reminder of Caleb in my otherwise fresh start. I'd moved into a tiny studio apartment in Portland's Pearl District, the walls bare but slowly filling with my own touches sketches from Jasper. A photo of Mia and me at karaoke. A lighting design award I'd won for the high school production. Life was quieter now, but it was mine, and that felt like a victory. I didn't hate Caleb. The anger had faded, replaced by a bittersweet ache. His note had stirred something in me, a mix of nostalgia and closure. I texted him a simple "thank you. I'm proud of you," and left it at that. We were no longer the center of each other's worlds, but we'd shaped each other, for better or worse. Jasper became a steady presence, our coffee dates turning into dinners, then long walks through the city. He wasn't a replacement for Caleb. He was something new, someone who saw me as I was, not as an extension of someone else's story. One night, as we sat on a bench overlooking the Willamette River, he took my hand. "I'm not asking you to be ready," he said, his voice soft. "But I'm here, Ethan, whenever you are." I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in months. "I'm getting there," I said, and I meant it. Work became my anchor. The theater community embraced me, and I started getting offers for bigger gigs, regional productions, even a guest spot at a festival in Seattle. Mr. Callahan called me a rising star, and though I laughed it off, the praise felt good. I was building something of my own, something Caleb's spotlight couldn't dim. Mia, ever the cheerleader, threw a small party when I landed the Seattle gig. To Ethan, she toasted, raising a glass of cheap wine. The guy who learned to shine on his own. I laughed. But her words hit deep. I'd spent so long in Caleb's shadow, afraid I wasn't enough. Now, I was starting to believe I was. Months passed, and Caleb's texts became less frequent. His life in Chicago a distant hum. I heard through mutual friends that he'd landed another role, that he was thriving. I was happy for him, but I didn't miss the chaos of our past. Jasper and I grew closer. Our relationship undefined but real. He painted a portrait of me, my face lit by stage lights, and hung it in his studio. "You're my muse," he said, half teasing, but his eyes were serious. One day, I got an email from Lila. It was short. "Unexpected, Ethan. I owe you an apology. I got too close to Caleb, and I didn't think about how it affected you. I'm sorry." I stared at the words, surprised by the relief they brought. I didn't respond, but I let go of the last bit of resentment I'd been holding. That night, I went to the theater, not as a spectator, but as the lead lighting designer for a new play. The cast was young, passionate, their energy infectious. As I adjusted the lights, creating pools of warmth and shadow, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't known before. The stage was my canvas now, and I was telling stories in my own way. After the show, Jasper met me outside, his smile bright. "You were incredible," he said, pulling me into a hug. I kissed him, soft and tentative, and it felt like a beginning. Not a wildfire, but a spark one I could nurture without losing myself. As we walked home, the city alive around us, I thought about Caleb, about the theater's laughter, about the boy I'd been. I'd loved him fiercely, but I'd learned something more important: how to love myself. The stage would always be a place of magic and heartbreak, but I was no longer just a shadow in someone else's spotlight. The Portland skyline glittered against the night, a mosaic of lights that felt like a reflection of my own journey, fractured, beautiful, and slowly coming together. I stood on my apartment's tiny balcony, Jasper's arm around me, and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The theater, once a place of pain, had become my sanctuary, a space where I could create without fear of being overshadowed. A year after Caleb left for Chicago, I got a call from him. His voice was warm, familiar, but different, steadier, like he'd found his own footing. "I'm coming back to Portland for a visit," he said. "Can we meet? Just to catch up?" I hesitated, but curiosity won out. We met at a quiet cafe, the same one where Jasper and I had first talked. Caleb looked good, his hair longer, his smile less guarded. He told me about Chicago, about the roles he'd played, the lessons he'd learned in therapy. "I was a mess back then," he admitted, stirring his coffee. "I didn't know how to balance who I was with who I wanted to be. I hurt you, and I'll always regret that." I nodded, the old wounds still there but faded, like scars that no longer ached. "We both grew up," I said. "I'm not the same person I was either." He smiled, his eyes soft. "I can see that. You're brighter, like you found your place." We talked for hours, not as lovers, but as two people who'd shared a chapter and come out stronger. He told me he was single, focusing on himself, and I told him about Jasper, about the life I was building. When we parted, he hugged me, and it felt like closure, a gentle end to a story that had once consumed me. Jasper and I grew closer, our relationship a slow, steady burn. He wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but we were honest, and that made all the difference. He came to my shows, cheering louder than anyone, and I went to his gallery openings, marveling at the way he saw the world. Mia called us disgustingly cute, and I didn't argue. The theater became my home in a way I'd never expected. I took on bigger projects, collaborated with directors who valued my vision, and started mentoring younger designers. One night, as I watched a show I'd lit come to life, I realized I'd stopped looking for validation in someone else's applause. The stage was enough, and so was I. A few months later, I got an invitation to Caleb's new show in Seattle. I went, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to see him shine. He was brilliant, his performance raw and honest. And when he took his bow, I clapped until my hands hurt. Afterward, we grabbed a drink, and he told me he'd met some Ania stage manager, someone who grounded him. "I'm happy for you," I said, and I meant it. As I drove back to Portland, Jasper asleep in the passenger seat, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The theater's laughter, once a wound, was now just a memory, a reminder of how far I'd come. I'd loved Caleb, and that love had broken me, but it had also taught me to rebuild. I'd learned to stand in my own light, to tell my own story. The road stretched ahead. The city lights a promise of new beginnings. I reached for Jasper's hand, his warmth steady beside me, and drove into the night, unafraid of what came next. Love, I realized, wasn't about being someone's everything, it was about being enough for yourself. And finding someone who saw that too.